Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you. We are super happy to see all of you here joining us tonight for our Startup Stories event. This event is all about the topic of AI-powered startups, and we are super excited to have two wonderful speakers here with us. They will give you their insights into their journey as founders and how they used AI for their business. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce to you Anja Koch. Tanya has a background in mechanical engineering from the ETH, and she is the co-founder of Amplo, which allows its customers to easily get all the insights to service machines without any prior knowledge in coding or AI. And I'm super interested to hear your story, Tanya, and thank you again for being part of tonight's event. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Merle. Thank you so much for having us. So I'm quickly going to share the screen. I hope this works. So here we are. So can you see my screen? Good. All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Tanya. I'm co-founder of Amplo. I joined Amplo last September, and my two co-founders, Niels and Oli, already started to build the product in 2020, so during Corona times. And we all three have a background in mechanical engineering. So Oli and me, we studied at ETH, and Niels at TU Delft. So super techie background, and trying to get the business knowledge on the way. So this is super interesting. I think it's also a very hard topic and not that easy to learn, but I think we'll make it work. So Amplo is on a mission to really give access to AI for everyone. So we're focusing mainly on service teams, so that service teams can use Amplo, our tool, to build their own machine learning algorithms without having like a huge knowledge in data science or machine learning or AI. And I think probably the easiest way to describe what we do is on a use case with our customer. So our customer, Tritium, they are a manufacturer of EV fast chargers. So when you have an electric vehicle, you need to charge the vehicle. And there are a lot of charging stations. And what we saw often now, especially in summer times, that the charging stations do break a lot. And it's super annoying when you want to charge your EV and you can't charge because the charger is broken. So we thought it's the perfect use case for Amplo to really use machine learning to make the service engineer's life much more easy. So service engineers from Tritium can use our platform to diagnose what is broken in the machine. So you can imagine they have like centralized service hubs, and they get the call like, okay, the charging station in Zurich doesn't work, what's going on? And normally when they don't use Amplo, they have to go manually through all the log files. So really go through the different sensor data and trying to figure out what is broken in the machine. And with Amplo, they can use machine learning in order to diagnose what's broken in the machine. So for example, they need 20 times the same failure in a machine, and they can already do predictions. And everything is built on a no-code basis. So for them, it helps them like reducing their machine inspection times from 3 days to 10 seconds. And therefore they can like reduce the downtime significantly and also reduce the costs of their whole service team. Because at the moment they're growing so fast, so EV charger business is like growing like crazy, and they can't scale their service team. So that's why they need some kind of a software solution that helps them automate this whole process. And this is not only for like EV fast chargers, actually this can be done to every machine. So we're really trying to make all the service teams and operations teams 80% more efficient by enabling them to use machine learning. And now a little bit like, how does it work? So they have like a web-based tool where they can upload their data, and they don't need any coding knowledge. So they can just upload their data and train the models. And what's also very cool, or what we see what other competitors have and we don't have, is like, we don't need any new sensors. So we say like, okay, the service engineers or like the manufacturer of the machine, they are the expert in their machines. So they know exactly where they have to build their sensors. So we're only leveraging like the data stuff, and they know exactly where they have to install the sensors to get like data that makes sense for them. And it's applicable for any kind of machine. So what's also super interesting for us is, for example, PV power plants, solar panels, heat pumps, compressors, all that kind of stuff that can break in a way. And yeah, as already told before, we really want to reduce this time to diagnose what's broken in the machine. So we started in 2020, and now we're a small team of 6 people and the office staff in the heart of Zurich. So we're based at Helvetiaplatz. So if anyone wants to have a coffee with us, just feel free to drop by. We're like above Hooters or above Bank. I think you know it probably. So we started with the 3 of us in the middle, and now we just onboarded Betül. She's our full stack developer, and Timo, he's working on the machine learning part. He's also a student from ETH, studying electrical engineering. And then we have Thilo. He's helping us a lot on the business side. So he has a master from Uni St. Gallen and already experience in sales at another startup. And now probably what's super interesting for you, what's not my, I have to say, it's not my core responsibility. So it's like really, where is the product going and what do we do with machine learning, or where does machine learning go? So at the moment, what is live on our platform is that we can diagnose what's broken in the machine, we can do predictive maintenance, and we can detect when someone is behaving like in an abnormal way to the normal way. And what we're now really focusing on is, and that's like super trendy at the moment in machine learning, is like, how can you make data labeling more appealing to the one that uses the platform. So at the moment, what we see, it's a huge effort for someone to label data, because it's very time consuming. You often outsource this to India, for example, and we really want to build like a platform which is super easy to use and can give also like smart suggestions to label the data. And this is what like Niels and his team is now really working on. And also the whole machine learning operations part. So this is something that we see as well. So when you really want to get machine learning out into production, so like industrial companies can really use machine learning, you need to have something in place which takes over like the whole machine learning operations. So what does that mean for us? So for example, when we build a model for some kind of failure for the charger, it can happen that the model drifts, for example. So you can imagine like a charger in Alaska has different operating points than a charger in Spain, for example. So there we're really focusing on these machine learning operations, that this can be detected as soon as a machine learning model drifts. And then another big trend in industry is like this edge computing. So a lot of machine manufacturers are afraid to give out their data. So they really want to keep their data. And now we're working on getting a solution, like an on-prem solution, meaning that their data will never leave either their machines or their cloud, so that we can like really put everything to the customer without interacting with the data. And this is like the main two things that our product team is really working on. And like the big goal is to have like the whole workflow of having a machine healthy can be automated with Amplo. Now, let me see. So Merle told me that a lot of students are here. So I really want to go into like a little bit of detail, like why is it awesome to build your own startup, or why you should join a startup. And it's just like, I want to tell a little bit my story. So what I learned in my previous startup. So before Amplo, I worked for 90 Labs. This is also an ETH spin-off. And I built there like the marketing team. And it was really nice to see as an employee of a startup, like what are the challenges of a startup? How can you scale? Which processes you need in place? And then there also like my wish came like to building like my own startup, because it's super nice. I think as an employee, it's super nice. You learn a lot. You don't have as much pressure as a founder, I think. And it's really incredible what you learn in such a short time. And then like joining Amplo, for me, this was really, it's like a roller coaster. So every day is a roller coaster. You get like so many good news, but also so many bad news. So for example, in sales, when you're a young startup, it's also super hard to sell, because you don't have, for example, those reference use cases in different industries. So in order to sell, you need to prove in a way that you're super trustable and that you will still live in a year from now. So those are like super interesting challenges. And also when you do, for example, in sales or in a startup, I think everyone who does, for example, sales, you have to do a lot of cold calling, you get a lot of no's, but then you really need to grow when you have like those yeses and like people that are really fan of your product, and you start seeing like how people use your product, how they interact. And so I really can encourage you to start your own business. And then a little bit more like hands-on experience, how to start. This is a super difficult question, I think, because normally you can't plan to start a startup. It somehow has to fall together, I think. But one thing I can really encourage you is like that your team is super important. I think team is key, and also culture is key. So when you start the company with co-founders, then I would really make sure that, it's like going into a relationship. So you really need to know those people very well. You need to like to work with them. You need to be happy to see them. And then I think it's already a very good start. Yes, so these are like my main my main things that I really want to encourage you. And I'm really looking forward afterwards to the Q&A. We can also go like a little bit more in detail about the AI. I think probably a lot of you are interested in that. And let me share here quickly my contact info. So this is the QR code, which directly links you to my LinkedIn, so you can connect. And also if you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. And now I'm really looking forward to the next presentation.
Next up, we have the speech from David, who actually has a background in consulting and has led multiple strategy consulting projects, but is now the co-founder of Typewise. which basically decodes human thoughts, which sounds like magic to me. So I'm really interested to hear how that works and what it means exactly. So David, thank you so much for being here and looking forward to hearing your story.
Absolutely. Just bear with me a second. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Yes. Great. No, glad to be here. Nice to meet everyone virtually. So I'm David. I'm one of the two founders of Typewise. Yeah, as you said, my background is partially in consulting. I studied at the University of Zurich. I spent a year abroad in Bangkok, then went to Rotterdam to do my master's. Went into the industry, worked for Schindler Elevator, first at the CIO office in Lucerne, went to the US, where I worked for the country CEO there on strategic projects. Decided that hardware and big machines are not my thing, and had a more knack for retail and consumer goods, and consulting seemed a good place. That brought me to Germany, Munich, then Frankfurt. Then did an MBA at INSEAD in Singapore, went back to consulting in Zurich, where we started our family. And then after 2 years of sitting out the sponsorship, I then went with Janice, my co-founder, who is a technical guy on the team. So his background is he was head of data science for Swiss National TV, SRF, where he basically built the data science team and all the models analyzing the data, you know, from the millions of households that we have on internet traffic, TV traffic, web traffic, and generating insights from that. And Typewise started before 2019. You will see it later. It has been a long journey. He took a sabbatical to develop the first neural network of the company, and we then started a collaboration with ETH Zurich, with the AI Center and Professor Hofmann first, and now with Professor Ryan Cotterell, where we started our second project, and that has really allowed us together with the team. And the first team has now successfully transitioned to Typewise, so now we're building a second team. I think we still have an open slot, so any AI engineer with NLP knowledge we're interested in. I think it's a very exciting project for the next 18 months. And so we have really, started as as an app company, as you will see, and became an AI company over time. Now, we're about 20 people, only 2 Swiss on the whole company. Only for now 4 in Switzerland. This will grow to 6 or 7, and the rest is scattered across Europe, Eastern Europe, UK. We have a Russian who is on the move, on the run, and we're trying to get him here. So very exciting times for everyone. Very shortly, what we do. So we try to boost productivity in our daily lives, and mainly also at the workplace. Typing is inherently inefficient. It's about 10% of the speed of our thoughts, so we lose a lot of efficiency, but also quality along the way. And with AI technology, we want to empower literally everyone using digital devices to make better use of our time. And so we built a text prediction technology. It's like a brain that sits within a company, and that we're basically able to serve various functions within a company, but we're starting mainly with customer service, where there's a lot of repetition in text output. Actually, a lot is shifting from calls towards written communication at the moment. And with text prediction technology, we can improve efficiency by 20 to 30%. We can eliminate most of mistakes that happen. But very importantly, we can also understand, for example, tying a ticket, right? When you're in an online shop and you're complaining, you're saying, hey, my parcel did not arrive. And that generates a support ticket with the e-commerce the customer service team, and they then will answer you somehow. And you will then be asked at the end to give a rating to that to that customer service from like 1 to 5. Were you happy? Yes or no? And of course, the language, how customer service communicates with you, has an impact on how you rate the service level and the happiness. And your happiness is then an indication of your purchase behavior in the future. So what we do is also we're tying in the language used with actual business KPIs, and then we can understand better what type of language is most effective. And we can then empower the entire customer service or organization to communicate in the most effective way. So basically bringing all the service reps up to the level of the most successful service reps on the team. We started full-time in 2019 with a B2C app. It's a keyboard app. You can download it in the app stores. We have 2 million downloads of the app, multiple awards. We were again in Vegas earlier this year, where we got the Innovation Award, which you could say, hey, these are great numbers, which is true. And in one aspect, yeah, it's, I mean, consumer apps, they can generate a lot of visibility and a lot of users. Now, this has allowed us in the first place to even get the support from InnoSwiss and from ETH to build something interesting that's actually on the market. And then we have on the base of that, we were able to develop AI technology. Now I didn't bring the benchmarks, but it doesn't matter. We basically outperform on like autocorrect or also word, like next word prediction. We outperform against Google, Apple, Grammarly, and these type of tools. You can ask, how do you do that? Well, we file patents for it. Maybe we've looked at it in a different way, also from a multi-language point of view. But these are quite, I mean, these are, yeah, we established the benchmarks together with the university. Of course, you can do benchmarks in multiple ways, but it's definitely a very good technology that we've developed, and also expertise that we've developed along the way in-house. And so then last year, we said, hey, the B2C app is just very hard to monetize. Yes, we have 20,000 paying paying users. But to have a real business case in B2C, I mean, in the end, you need millions of paying users, and scaling it up to that level with limited resources, it just, yeah, it almost seems impossible. And we have not really cracked a model where it just explodes, which some games manage, but also, again, most never do, and you need huge budgets for it. But what we've done is basically we've taken this technology and launched an enterprise solution. I will show that to you later, that we now basically market in a B2B model. It's very different. We're not on the app stores. We're not even giving the product in any way. We're approaching companies directly. Cold emailing head of customer service, head of marketing in Switzerland, in Germany, in the UK, with global companies, and kind of finding our way through. So it's a very different model. We've just basically started this in January. So we have an MVP on the market. We're live with certain customer service teams already with global companies in one country, and it's going well. We're getting good feedback, and so on the product, I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the roadmap, but basically, we've now built a completely different vision of where the company's going, still under the umbrella of decoding human thoughts, and at the end, empowering people to express their intent in a much faster, more productive way. Now, maybe what's more interesting is kind of what keeps me up at night. I mean, if that's interesting. And one, of course, usually I had the other way around. I think people come first, and then comes the cash, because you need to pay the people, and the people are what makes the company. But just so you understand better the company's history, I flipped it around for this purpose. So yes, we started with a keyboard app, and here you see a bit the iteration of the product. The first thoughts appeared in early 2015. when my co-founder approached me, and we had worked together before on some side gig. We had an online marketing agency that, where we sold like web projects, that was like an evening activity we did next to our full-time jobs. But we're never really interested enough to do that full time. But we had this ongoing relationship, and he approached me with the idea of the keyboard. Why the keyboard? Well, we use something developed for typewriters for 10-finger like typing that we now stuck on a touch screen where we use 2 thumbs, and elderly maybe just one finger. And so it's very unuser friendly. I mean, it's just not made for purpose. And he thought around using like a hexagonal structure that optimizes the space distribution. We then went from a completely new layout to a QWERTY-like layout, having discussed with professors from the field who've also tried new key arrangements, which were never adopted. Did a Kickstarter crowdfunding where we raised $15,000 from like 800 people. That kind of validated, hey, do we have users that want to pay? We then, together with a student, created like a first version, which was rather like a version like 0.1, launched it in the app stores, had like 20, 30,000 downloads quite quickly because of good press coverage. We had a good headline, like type 70% faster on your smartphone. And that got featured on like Mac Rumors and some big web pages, and that drove to many downloads. And then we kind of entered a standstill where suddenly we had like a feature or bug backlog of years. It took us 1 year in that setup, in that part-time setup, to launch, I think it was a version 1.4 that was even stable, that was usable without new features. And it took us then another 2 years to kind of launch our final product. And I think why we even went there between this version 1 and version 2 was the continuous usage of the product by a certain user group, where we had a few thousand people that just throughout that time that said, guys, it's really good. I cannot type anymore without your product. And so we knew, okay, if there are people, and it's quite standard, like standard users, then there must be something to it. And so that was the starting point. We then went full time. I first took a sabbatical for 6 months. We just had our second child. So I wanted to see within 6 months of unpaid leave, can we put a financing round together? Because clearly that wouldn't have paid for a full team yet, as most software doesn't. There are certain bootstrapped companies that really grow only from within. I think in this case that didn't happen. So we knew we need to get external financing. We then had the first commitment in February, so that was month 5. I think month 3 and month 4 really hard. Like January, that was month 4, that was really tough because we got a lot of declines and no yeses. And then in February we got to the first yes, and then that led to some momentum. We had the shooting for Lions Den, Höhle der Löwen, which happened in March, where we got another investment commitment from 2 investors there, as you may have seen on the show. And so then that led to some good pitches and good momentum. Then COVID hit, and then we weren't sure, but I still went ahead and quit my job, knowing that without having quit my job, we could never legally sign the documents. I mean, nobody would do that if they don't have the legal confirmation that I'm full-time available. And so then that worked out. Yeah, I took, between the commitment in February and the actual signing, it took 3 months. So in mid-May, we then signed the documents. We then left because we couldn't pull together the whole round in that short amount of time. We were expecting to raise 1 million. We then left open a second tranche for later in the year, which also when people realized COVID was not that bad for the economy, that then over summer we got in more investors who could easily join in. So that was some flexibility, I think good legal advice there, how we built that. And so then the company grew. We launched then with the ETH technology. Well, we jointly developed it, but this autocorrect that outperforms Google was in a version 3 that came out in April 2021. And there we got very good momentum on the app. Like suddenly revenue went up, like double month over month. We had very nice monthly revenue. If we could have kept it and grew it at that pace, it would have been a very nice story. Unfortunately, in summer, it didn't work out that well. B2C mechanics, especially in app stores, can be very up and down. And if you don't have a stable like engine that runs, yeah, it can just change. Your traffic may change, and so that's very unpredictable. And that kind of ate into our fundraising efforts for the second round. So then that became a bit of a scramble, but I think the good decision was to do a crowdfunding, not a Kickstarter, but an equity crowdfunding through Seedrs, where we used the keyboard to push a message. So every keyboard user, and we have about 350,000 users by now, they got a message on the keyboard, on top of the keyboard saying, hey, we're doing a fundraise. We already have some commitments. Do you want to join us? And actually then got a few calls and emails from users who turn out to be real angel investors. And quite some amount came together, and with that momentum, we got even more. And so we raised a $2 million round then at the end of Q3 last year. That was great. I think investors always believed in the B2B story of the thing. They always knew, okay, with this app, you probably cannot make 100 million revenue. And I think that's always the ambition. If you want to have a unicorn valuation, you need probably to have, it's usually like a 20x revenue multiple, so 50 million at least, but you have to think big. So I think 100 million revenue potential needs to be there in what you do. And so they always knew about the B2B case, but we didn't really know what the B2B case was. One idea was to white label the keyboard and give it to other businesses. That's very complicated. I'm not going to explain it. We actually sold it once. So we have an active client use it, like using the keyboard for a specific online shopping coupon experience that matches what you type with like coupon and rewards, and you can get cash back. So if I type sneakers, you can see an Adidas logo and you can click on it. And if you buy, you as a user get 5% cash back, and they get a reward, and then we get a reward. Very, very complex, quite interesting, but there are not many of these companies out there that do such a thing. So that's also not the business model that suddenly we could say, we sold this 100 times. I tried to sell it 100 times, and it just didn't work really. It's too complex and too difficult. So then this whole customer service solution came in, and there we certainly got traction quite quickly. And let me show you what that is, because it's something completely different. We give this keyboard basically one last chance. There is a Typewise 4 coming out in early May, so you can then check it out. We did experiments with the layout, scientific experiments to see is there a layout that's easier to get used to. And this is basically the optimum that exists with the hexagonal shapes. There's no further optimization possible. So we are currently doing a big redesign based on a lot of user analytics. And so we're going to see how this will improve the B2C side. And maybe that can be a small part of the company that kind of pays for itself. And that's a nice product, because with millions of downloads, you get a lot of visibility. And it's a cool story in general, but it's definitely not something that we see is the big case going forward. So what is the big case? It's basically this thing. So we do sentence and text prediction in any CRM system. You've seen on the left side. As you type, we can insert text automatically, extremely quickly, and get rid of all mistakes. It's a bit what you know from maybe Gmail. But the big difference is that it's a custom model trained on the company's data. Gmail is not able to give you full sentences with this level of precision, but we basically use enterprise data to build a custom model. We combine it with a generic model, so it's quite sophisticated. And the good thing is our technology allows full data privacy. So we own the whole tech. We can deploy it into an enterprise system so that they don't have to send us data, which some other startups rely on because they use a GPT-2 model, which is not theirs. And so they have to start shipping around data, which will never work on a large scale. So this is quite interesting. We're live with this, and I have very good feelings that over the next couple of months, this could work out really well. The other thing, what you need is then obviously good people to execute on your plan. The team. It doesn't really matter who it is. Like a few thoughts, maybe. What could be interesting to you? I think one is hiring people is something we've tried a lot of different things. I think in general there is a book, I think it's called Good to Great, where they analyze a lot of big companies and they find out a few like traits that what do big companies do well, so that they are successful and better than the market over time. And one big thing is always, hey, you get great people on the bus, and then you decide where the bus is headed. And this is also true here. So we did a big pivot. Had we hired people that only cared about, let's say, the keyboard, they would now be the wrong people. And I think you need to hire people that you, first of all, can work well together with, and that also believe in your bigger vision, and also your bigger kind of purpose. So if the first product doesn't work out, you work on the second one. So that's, I think, very important. The second thing is we've tried a lot. So at the beginning, we thought, hey, we want to work all in the same space. And there are companies, I know other founders, they started a few years earlier than me. So I think now a lot changed over the past two years, of course. But they brought a lot of people here to Switzerland. So they have an office in Basel, and they brought in developers from all over Europe to Basel or in Zurich. The way we operate, it's very different. I mean, Dimitri, he was one of our first hires, but back then he was based in Moscow, and we had a Swiss candidate as well. And we had to make a decision who we're going to hire. And we had as founders, we had a strong tendency for the Swiss guy. And we're like, hey, he's here, we can work together much better. And then one of our board members said, no, but Dimitri is much more experienced in what we do, and we should go for him. And like, boundaries don't matter. And so that was a bit the starting point. And it turned out that most of people, I mean, the entire product team is abroad. Yeah, we have people in Serbia, Romania, the UK. The AI team is here because of ETH Zurich. So that's a bit the specialty. Growth, he's in Slovenia. Max, he's in the UK. So it's very spread out, and actually works quite well. And what we started doing is then rather, for example, every 2 months to have a team gathering and bring everyone into a new location. So last month we went to Slovenia, and then 1 week you kind of work together. But they also put a lot of emphasis on obviously dining and maybe doing a team excursion or something like that. And I think that seems, especially once people have family, that seems to be a much preferred situation. So I think developers, they don't want any non-remote job anymore, because it's just inconvenient. And especially if you're not in Switzerland, commuting can be a huge headache, and expensive. And you sit in the Dell office. So I think there, to what I see, to like our way of setting it up, the good thing is we can recruit flexibly anyway. We can always do a European-wide recruiting. Time zones, that's probably important. So we have somebody in the Philippines doing testing. That's maybe half great, just because the time zone, we always have to wait until the next morning to get the feedback. It's also okay. And I think once you reach a certain size, maybe of hundreds of people, you anyway will be spanning time zones as your business development will probably become global, and you have people in the US, you have people in APAC. Maybe for now, as a smaller team, where I, as a founder, co-founder, need to be involved in a lot of topics, it kind of saves your sanity to not spread yourself too thin across like like a 24/7 rhythm. But that's really like the few learnings that we've taken away so far. And right now, I think we haven't been in the better shape with the team as of today. And I think that's it. Yeah, happy to talk more, whatever interests you, of course.
And with this, in the name of Startup Campus, we thank you so much for attending tonight's event. Thanks for joining, and we hope you had a lot of fun and hope to see you as well as one of our upcoming events, either this Thursday or then maybe at the end of the month. Thanks so much.